Welcome to the moment that changed everything, where we interview notable creative people to gain insights into how they got started and learn more about the moments that shaped them and their careers. Today, we sit down with Baron Manett, president of Per Se Brand Experience and co-founder of the Ensemble Company, a speaker series that provides learning experiences for the next generation of leaders.
Whatever you want to do, make a commitment to be great. Because I think the challenge now is, regardless of any business, none of us have time for good. We have time for great. And I think that comes down to just finding what you're going to love to do. Because I think if you love doing it, you don't think about the money, you think about, to our comments earlier, you think about the craft, or how do you consistently get better and have that intellectual curiosity to always want to be at the top of your game.
In this episode, we learn about his beginnings working in the music industry, how starting from a sound strategy leads to the best work, and how Per Se uses empathy to connect with brands and their audiences. There's a lot to learn in this episode. Hey, Baron Manett, thanks for being on the show.
Great to be here.
This is the first podcast of 2020 for us, so I hope you had a great break. Happy New Year. I'm not sure where you are on Happy New Year's, how long you can go before you can, stop saying Happy New Year, because we're at, what are we now, Jan 15th?
So I was just in a meeting where someone said this is the cutoff day.
It is? Oh, yeah, really? There's a day?
It was a client, and so they've decided that no more emails, no more small talk, opening meetings with Happy New Year after Jan 15. So I think this is our limit today.
It's a good rule of thumb.
Happy New Year to you too.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Listen, before the break, I had the pleasure of going to one of your Ensemble events, which we kind of got to chat a little bit about after the event.
Thanks for coming.
But yeah, it was fantastic. Really loved it. I mean, I talked to Lori before our president here about you coming on, and he said that Baron is very good at putting on events, and I was so happy to go and experience it because it was really a lot of fun.
It's funny. It's so great that you came, and I'm sure we'll talk about Ensemble, but it's a concept. And for those listening who haven't been, Ensemble is a speaker series that me and my two partners started a few years ago to develop live learning opportunities for our next generation of leaders in business, but we get a lot of people from the marketing and advertising communication communities, startup communities, entrepreneur communities. And, these folks are so smart, and they're consistently looking to upgrade their skills and learn, and they're inquisitive, and they really are the top, 2% of people who will be in the future decision-making seats, or people we're going to work with. And every time they come out, you see how bright they are and how engaged they are, and it really gives you, first of all, it's very optimistic. You see, we're going to be in good hands, I think, because you can often talk about, kids today, or the sky is falling, but there's not enough opportunities in our business anymore, we think, to get together and learn on a shared topic, network so that you can help develop your career and your profession or craft, and do it in a fun way. So, Ensemble just completed our second season. We do 4 events a year. And our goal is, the short form for us is that we want to shorten the gap between the stage and the audience, right? So our goal is to bring speakers that our younger audience would normally not get access to, or not get access to at a $25 ticket price, because unfortunately we're seeing too many conferences and events at $2,000 or $1,500.
Yeah.
And this audience needs to get exposed to these ideas so that they can grow into the leaders they're going to become. So trying to provide that kind of access. I think when it comes to events, or we used to call them events when I started my career. Now we call them experiences, or experiential activations, or whatever more consonants you want to put in. But at the end of the day, live events are real, and we all want to congregate, and we've heard that, but it really is true. The more we're stuck with screens or looking at phones, and the living in the world of the ephemeral, having live kind of touchstones, I think, allows us to be more human and frankly learn better. and I started my career luckily in the music industry. So there's, still to this day, there's nothing like going to a concert.
Right.
And it's a different experience. It's multi-sensory. You never forget how something makes you feel. And I think we need to remember that as we talk about designing experiences, whether it's for brands, whether it's for audiences. It's got to come down to a human connection.
So where did the idea come from?
From Ensemble?
Yeah.
So the Ensemble series, it was really interesting because I've always been a fan of live event and experiences, but I've been fortunate enough to be invited to do a lot of speaking over the last, say, 6-7 years. And I also joined the faculty up at Seneca College's CAB program, the Creative Advertising and Business program. And I used to come into class, part-time professor. I love teaching and love interacting with the students. And I would always give my students, hey, I'm speaking at this conference or I'm going to this event. Whoever wants to come, let me know. And I didn't get a lot of takers. So the insecure barons, like, well, you must suck as a professor.
Even my own students.
They're like, not coming. I mean, what a great way to, suck up to a professor, things like that. And, as I continued to make these offers and then came back and said, hey, I didn't see any of you. I was like, what's going on? What am I doing wrong here, guys? And looking for feedback. And they said, listen, we just can't afford it. Like we want to come see you speak, but we can't spend $1,500 or even the student rate at a lot of these events, $500. Call it $200. I mean, when we all started out in our businesses, it's a lot of money for anybody. So I started talking to two partners and colleagues that I work with all the time. Michael Gurgis, who runs just a killer company called Big Digital, and just an entrepreneur who I look up to, and Sandy Marshall, who was running the Second City Canada office at the time. And we started all commiserating about the same challenge. Like, how do we get, what are the prospects for young people who want to take charge of their career and want to be self-leading in their training? And we started talking to a lot of our clients and business colleagues, and two things happened. One, we recognized there were a lot of young people that were getting shut out of learning experiences, and a lot of businesses that want to help their younger teams learn more, but they can't keep up with the demand because this audience is really engaged. They would go to a conference every week.
Right. And
who doesn't want to spend $1,500 a week on training? And it's just, senior managers were getting inundated with requests that they couldn't fulfill. So we thought there was an opportunity there for young professionals to get together. We thought there was a hole in the market. We talked to a bunch of trade organizations to see how they were dealing with it, and we didn't really like what we saw. So we thought we came up with the idea for Ensemble. Like, I mean, the goal really is it's kind of a experiential kibbutz, right? Like, how can we all get together 4 times a year? We do it. We try and do it on a cadence of every 90 days, and we pick topics that we feel are the intersection between business and pop culture that allow us to. It's a generalist series. It allows people to get together from a lot of different backgrounds. Let's put them together, and let's bring speakers together that want to deliver their expertise and information, but also recognize the need for audiences that might normally not be at their talks. And we figured we'd try it and see how we got through the first couple, where we did it at the Great Hall was our first venue, which is beautiful. And we partnered up with our friends. All 3 of us have an association with the folks at We.
Okay.
And we thought, that's, and our audience is really one of the first groups of kids that came through We Day programs, and now they're in the workforce. So these are the people who will be our leaders. So the response was great. And then We opened their new office in downtown Toronto, which has a fantastic theater there. And it's a full content production theater. So we have an audience anywhere from 175 to 225 people live. We record it, we shoot it, and we're playing around with different content formats. And it's kind of like R&D for me and my team and our colleagues, but really the audience has really given us the best compliment because they're, 50% of them come back or come to more than one. They usually bring somebody else. The tickets are $25. And then we rely on corporate partners to help underwrite underwrite the whole season cost, kind of like if you think about traditionally a theater season. It's kind of built on a hybrid of if we were a rep theater or a band, and we would go and play live dates. So we, after 2 years, we are excited about 2020. Our next volume, we call our events volumes. Volume 11 is, the topic is the future of food. And so we're just in the process of building the speakers agenda for that, and it's really exciting. I mean, you got everything from, dark kitchens to plant-based to fast food, launching new formats to change in the food guide. So there's a lot. Our challenge is always running out of time and putting together the groups of speakers that can help you get a little bit smarter, help you meet some different people, and have fun. So our goal is we take the topic seriously. We really don't take the format that seriously, because at the end of the day, the more people get together, the better we're all going to be.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about a little bit of behind the scenes on putting on the production, because the one that I attended, as you know, is called The Future of Truth.
Future of Truth was our last one in December.
Yeah.
And that was I think one of our best yet. So it's great to always, someone asked me in another interview, what's your favorite one? I'm like, the next one, right? Because as a producer, you can always see what you can do better and things like that. But Future of Truth was special. It was our 10th anniversary. Like, it was our 10th event. We never thought we'd get to 10. It was a complete sellout, oversellout. We had to expand capacity more than we've ever had to before. The quality of our speakers were amazing. Everybody from Vice to BuzzFeed to Brain Sites to former cabinet minister. I mean, and startups. But what was most gratifying is, about a year and a half ago, we did a volume called The Future of Trust in Brands and things like that. And it really resonated with our audience. And for a year, they've been saying, do it again, make it bigger, we'll come back. And we did. And I think we picked the end of the year, given after the Canadian election, as we ramp up to the American election and the growth of questions around truth in media and, Facebook discussions and international espionage and all these awesome things. But it's definitely a topic that's on people's mind right now and not going away. And I think having brands like BuzzFeed and Vice come in and collaborate with us shows that there's resonance for what we're doing. The topic's super important, but people are starting to look to Ensemble to hopefully participate in some of the discussions, and we value that trust. Yeah,
I think those two guests were they were spot on, because, they're involved in the dissemination of information. I mean, it's a huge subject, right? And I know you came on at the end to wrap up the event, and you said, I'm not sure if we got any place tonight. And I didn't know if you were joking or whether or not you were being sincere there, because, I thought the most salient thing one of your guests said was that, the truth is your own. You decide kind of what that is. It makes this idea of there being one truth kind of a difficult thing to kind of categorize.
Yeah, this is my personal feeling, but that makes me uncomfortable, that thinking. Like, I'm hearing that a lot. It's like, well, it's my truth. And, where I come from, my truth is called an opinion, right? And there's one truth. And for so many reasons that are on so many different podcasts, I think we've gotten to this stage where there's almost a parallel thought track going on, depending on what our biases are. And I think personally, it's a topic that fascinates me, which is why I was excited to curate the program. But I still hold out hope that there is one truth, because that's what truth should be, an empirical truth. And there's points of view that are opinion, right? So. But we certainly are seeing this play out politically, that one side believes there's a truth, another side believes there's a truth, and how do you get to
when each one of them feels that
a final consensus, right? Yeah. So I think we're spinning a bit. I think so. I was being truthful, no pun intended, when I wrapped up and said, I don't think our goal or our expectation is that we were going to solve the formula of the Future of Truth, but our goal was to give the audience takeaways that in this new world of communication, there's a tremendous amount, in my opinion, of responsibility on the consumer of the media or consumer of opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's on your phone, whether that's in your ears right now, or whether that is on traditional media, what's the message? But more now, and I think being someone, a Gen Xer, we grew up with the empirical understanding that, I got it from the news, it must be true. But now it's like, okay, what's the message? Who's giving it to me? Why are they giving it to me?
Well, and that's, I mean,
that was the big point for me coming out of our session.
I think both of us can look at it because we're part of an era where we actually witnessed the 24-hour news program come to be.
The birth.
The channel. Yeah. And I think that, I don't know a ton about the subject, but I think it's safe to say that, with the 24-hour news channels, opinion-based journalism became much more the meat of the order, only because there's only so much news that you can report if you're just telling people what's happening. You have to fill that space. The flood of op-ed, I think, has made it like, okay, now to your point, it's as someone who's consuming the information, you have to understand that if you're only consuming one, you're not really getting a balanced version of what you might see as the truth.
Well, yeah, I think that's with the transition of news as entertainment, right? Because again, I remember when you think of the birth of CNN, and people were wondering, how are you going to fill?
Right.
How you can fill 24 hours of news, right?
Yeah.
And that's before ideas like the Kardashians or reality TV. But there was always commentary shows built around discourse. When you think of 60 Minutes, or you think of Meet the Press, or Sunday Morning, Washington Sunday Morning, all these different things. So they were all there. But my recollection, and I hope it's not just looking in the rearview mirror, is that there was usually a balanced program where there would be a delineation between views and fact.
Right.
And even now I'm finding those lines very blurry, depending on what channel you're watching or where you've surfed, or you can go as deep, you can program your content now so you only hear one side.
Yeah.
I think, at our office, we're forcing ourselves to experience media that we normally wouldn't, right? Yeah. I think that's, part of being a good marketer is being able to suspend your bias and being able to understand and look for insights in other audiences. Over my career, I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of great CPG brands, but often I'm thinking, what would a 36-year-old woman do in Saskatoon, or or White Rock, BC, or just out in Quebec City. So I think hopefully the more openness you can bring to looking at arguments, I think there's a better opportunity to find consensus and truth. Right?
And to bring it back to the creative fields and advertising and creative teams often are reflecting what's happening in the news. That's definitely part of the process, and now it's so much different than in previous years where there was only a few sources. That's what you consumed. There was an overriding belief, and now it seems so fragmented that when you're trying to create advertising think about mass advertising too, right? And we talk about this all the time, and I'm sure you have this experience too. You look at a brief, and there's a demographic, and that's who you're talking to. But within that demographic, there is a ton of psychographic information that may or may not be considered. And it's this, it's sort of like, it can really influence someone's opinion about a brand, depending on what your leanings are.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it used to be, it used to be really simple. Hey, we want to talk to 18 to 24, right? And we want to talk to men. Okay, great. There's a nice myopic, whole group that really doesn't exist in real life, but on in the briefs or the way we used to be able to plan media interactions, that's how things were shorthanded or sold. But if you really go deeper, there's a 29-year-old woman that's going to have a very similar type of passion for a product or segment of services that could be very similar to a 48-year-old woman or a 62-year-old woman, right? Especially if you take ideas such as for women, this might be the first generation that moms are cooler than their daughters, or my mom never dressed like my sister. Ever, right? It would never happen. Still, to this day, would never happen. But now, mothers and daughters shopping at the same stores or sharing clothes. So I think obviously psychographic is where we're spending all of our time, right? And just motivations and pockets of demand rather than thinking about blunt instruments of demos and things like that. So there's evolution on our industry side for sure, and it will continue. I mean, at the same time, you've got a lot of people, probably some of your guests, might have noticed this as well. We all consume on our phone, so we all think we are creative. I didn't like that Snapchat post. Didn't do it for me. Okay, but there's a team that probably worked really hard on it, and the half-life of creative has just materially changed forever.
Well, I think we were talking, off camera about this and this idea of craft. I think it's becoming increasingly more difficult to talk to clients about creativity and having them appreciate the craft or your experience in doing so when they're self-publishing all the time too. They have phones, to your point. They're posting on Instagram. They're putting filters on their photographs. They're there's an aesthetic, and then you got a poor art director who's sitting there trying to explain to them why the decisions they're making are important and why they are qualified. And there's this blurring of the lines where it's like, well, hey man, I shot a short video the other day of my kid. Turned out really good. I put a music track on it. Looks like a commercial.
Yep. I think so. I think there's yes to that. I mean, we hear that a lot, and I think a lot of colleagues that we're all working with or maybe listening are experiencing that. There's a lot in that statement, but I think if you take a step back, first of all, I've never I think the empathy to be a client right now is necessary. It's a very tough position for heads of marketing, heads of communications who need to develop breakthrough work with their partners, whether those partners are in-house, because we're experiencing the rise of the in-house agency. Sure. There's all kinds of different models. Cost pressures have never been more pronounced. But at the same time, if you look back historically, even in the last 20 years, our clients had more people, right? Like there's a layer of client level that's been hollowed out in the majority of these organizations for whatever reason, cost cutting, organizational change, acquisitions.
Even efficiency. I mean,
just the amount of time and thinking to really do meaningfully relevant work that's strategically sound, that is going to move the needle. This, forget about our industry, anything of value takes time and thought. And a lot of times now, clients are they have so much going on, so many balls in the air, and not enough resources to really, I think, go from A to Z. So how, I think, as marketing partners, regardless of what side of the desk you sit on, I think we have to bring that understanding to, okay, what does a client need? Because more and more now we're seeing, before we make anything for clients and brands, we need to make sure we're all aligned on the right plan. Like, what are we going to do before we make the things?
For sure.
And I think a lot of people and a lot of organizations get into a perpetual motion of checking boxes. Okay, hey, we did the Instagram, we've got the email newsletter. It's all going to go out on the same day. So we're checking lists rather than creating and delivering on that higher level work that's going to work. If that makes sense, right? So I think clients are in a challenge right now. I think some clients are navigating that challenge extremely well. I think some are having challenges. And I think people are trying on different models. I think some agencies are really navigating this new world well. I think some are not. And I mean, the exciting thing about our business is there's always been this type of change. There's always been something that's going on. I think the pace is just a lot faster, so one of the reasons I wanted to go back and spend part of my time teaching is selfishly, I just learned so much diving into a campus of students and just watching and learning how they think and attack problems and co-create with each other. I think part of our job is to not have any sacred cows, and how can we learn? How can we do it better? What are new collaboration models? And it's exciting.
Yeah, I think, the one observation about technology is this leap to execution. I know that you specialized in strategy at Ariad, and I think, and I'm a huge believer in strategy, and I think it's often rushed. There's not too many people that do it well. It requires an enormous amount of discipline.
Yep.
To resist that urge to just, as you say, tick the boxes. And I have technology that makes it real in about a millisecond.
It can.
And all of a sudden it exists and now it's done. Without that, the due diligence of actually sort of going, no, we need a strategy, we need a plan, we need to make sure it's sound. And then we can execute off of that, because anything that we do execute off of that should technically work.
Well, and at the same time, you need to balance the discipline for strategy versus the paralysis of never being ready and waiting for, is the plan going to be perfect? So again, I think in hindsight, maybe my parents didn't agree at the time, but starting in the music industry was amazing training for what we're doing now, because on the record company side, we would launch, maybe 20 to 30 albums a week, and then the job is, okay, what's going to hit? And then how do you support that? So there was an agility built into entertainment that, because, at the time, and still today, songs or, showing my age, albums, they break regionally. They don't break nationally. You find trends. And
right.
How do you grow that into something that creates critical mass? And I think that is where the best ideas are breaking through in terms of marketing and advertising today. So I think there's we're phrasing it more as strategic alignment and thinking about it in terms of flights or tours, so, okay, and what can we learn? So selfishly, we talked about Ensemble at the beginning of the podcast, which is certainly something at Per Se, which we refer to ourselves as a brand experience agency today, but really our job is to help our clients make good plans in terms of strategy, bring those plans to life in terms of creative and production, and then make sure that we're keeping our goals about how we want our audience, whether it's B2B or B2C, to experience those brands or that information. And so Ensemble, it's kind of our lab. It's like, hey, here's a fun idea that, everybody who doesn't have enough free time, let's start a speaker series for young people and figure out how we can make it successful. That's a great practice for us to walk the talk, if you will, right? And that's how we're looking at it.
Yeah, I think there is. You raise a good point. I know I used to work with someone who would say, you set the table, but the whole thing doesn't need to be set before you begin.
Right.
Because to your point, if you do, it's a longer process, and you tend to second guess yourself.
Well, there's that, the saying that gets thrown around a lot that I'm sure you've heard as well, and our listeners have heard is, good's better than done. Good's better than perfect. Excuse me. Good's better than perfect. And I like the shorthand, but it's, it doesn't have to, I don't think anything is perfect anymore, but I think we need to realize that in our brand houses or our offices, we're thinking about things in an obscene amount of time versus the general public. And I think that, I often get asked, if my son or daughter wants to go into, marketing, communications, advertising, whatever we're going to call it next week, what should they do? I'm like, go outside, go shop, go be around people, right? Because you need to remember what it's like to be a human being rather than just studying charts and graphs or looking at briefs or, being in an office talking to other people who are in downtown Toronto, which isn't normal in the rest of Canada and things like that. So being able to I think understanding and empathy for audiences is the number one skill. Everyone's like, oh, it's storytelling. But before we even get to understand what people want as stories, how do you empathize with them? And I think empathy and trust are the skill sets that will lead to the next great level of communications.
Interesting. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think in terms of empathy, we have to understand how people are feeling, right? And I think if anybody out there is listening and has just had a bad experience, whether it's with their cell phone provider, whether it's trying to sign up for a white paper that has asked for 37 pieces of data just so I can get a 3-pager to see if I can look at a chart, right? Or anything in between, I think the majority of things are harder than they have to be. And I think we put a lot of undue stress and complication into our audience's life. And I prefer it per se to refer to shoppers or people as audiences, because that's what we are. We're all. And then there are breakthroughs that raise the bar of expectation, and that we all know of. Like, whether it's Uber, whether it's a Starbucks app or things like that. If they can do it, if I can hit a button and then a stranger will pick me up and drive me wherever I want, which, by the way, as kids we were all told never to get a car, right? That's a crazy amount of technology. How come my bank doesn't know what I should do next? Or I can order a coffee and a chocolate croissant with the right amount of foam
Right.
At a Starbucks that is 4 kilometers away, and I'll know when I can pick it up.
Right.
How come the cable company can't come to my house in less than 8 hours and I have to stay home all day? So these are systemic processes that corporate structures have put on us. And then I think the easy thing to do is just pass them on to the audience, right? So, but if we were being empathetic to the audience, what does the audience really need? Why are they going to care about something? Why are they going to share? Why are they going to be happy? And that's the hard work of strategy, right? Is, how can we show the audience that we care about the same things? Because if we do that, it's not about trying to sell anything anymore. The first thing we got to do is earn attention. Yeah. And that is the number one commodity today. So I think empathy allows a value exchange to begin of attention, right? That was and then I think once we understand what our audience's motivations are doing, and this manifests in all kinds of different buzzwords, customer journey mapping. All right. But really, understanding what are you trying to do when you go to this website to this website.
Yeah. Pretend you're a human being for 5 seconds. What would you like to have happen?
It's really easy to throw out, pretend you're a human. But the people who are doing this groundbreaking work, like the planners and the strategists and the business case people, it's hard work. It's really hard work. And it's so valuable when it's done right. It gives a creative team a different lens and dimension to what they need to do. And sometimes clients will say, I don't have time or I don't have budget for it. But, there's that old saying, I think that came out of the 60s, clients get the marketing they deserve. And sometimes it sounds like you're pointing fingers at clients and there's no blame on the marketing side. I think it's shared blame. But I think there's some clients out there that always want to be, and I was a client first, so I always wanted to be the first call that my agency partners returned or my communication partners returned. I always wanted to make sure that they loved working on our work first. And then as an agency person, when I went to the other side, there were the clients who, we love these people. They treat us with respect. They give us the best information. They let us be better at our jobs. Those are the people you're going to work on first. That work is going to get better. Yeah. And I think a lot of people now, because of what we were talking about before about less staff, less opportunity for training, they don't know what great can be. And I think as seniors in our industry, I think we got to wave that flag and do a better job of showing what's possible.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about shared responsibility in terms of success, we talk to entrepreneurs here all the time. We sit across from the table, they tell us about their business. And certainly, enough time passes where you see some of them are successful and some of them aren't. When you sit down with new clients at your company and you listen to them talk about their business, are you listening to see if there's some authenticity there? Because I found in our experience here, sometimes you can look at someone and go, I just sense that this person's going to be successful regardless. Oh yeah. Because they're connected to what they're doing. They seem to be, they speak the truth. at the core, you know what they want and what their hopes and dreams are. And you're there to help them creatively express that and help them along with your expertise. And yet others, it seems a little bit cloudy. And it's always at that moment in the meeting where I'm like, I wonder why they're doing what they're doing. And then you got to ferret that out.
Well, it's a great question. I mean, certainly you see it. And I think after doing it for 20 plus years, you can get a sense of the type of client that you're going to do great work with, right? You're more self-aware. You've made a bunch of mistakes. Hopefully you learn from them, know what to avoid. But I think, I think when it depends on the size of your agency too, right? I mean, so when I was part of the team at Ariad, I mean, we were 125, 135 people. Clients come in with different mandates. Luckily, when I founded Per Se over 3 years ago, we're small on purpose for a number of reasons. One,
I was going to ask you that because I know that you say that on the website. I was going to just
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think before I opened Per Se, I went and talked to a lot of clients who I had the pleasure of working with, and a lot of people in our industry who worked at various agencies. What do you like? Where do you think the trends are going? And there were a few headlines, if you will. So first of all, clients want more senior attention. That's not a new headline, but it's interesting. You'll probably, if you're working in an agency now, you're like, yeah, they want attention, but are they willing to pay for senior fees and all that kind of stuff? So let's park that debate. But the idea is clients are looking for more value. Right, that's what I think, and I was looking for that as a client, and I think one of the reasons we're seeing a ton of RFPs is people are shopping; they're not getting what they want. I'm not a big believer in the RFP. I think it's a hard way to understand your partnerships, but happy to go into that, or maybe that's a different podcast. We made the decision that for Per Se, because there's only 6 of us, including myself. The RFP model is not for us. It's not going to be a good way to drive our business forward. So we earn our business the old-fashioned way through referrals. If we do a good project, can we earn another project, right? Which is, I really think I think when you're hired as AOR, your next call is you're fired or renewed. So I'd rather, I think it's all project-based, and I think starting my agency career in experiential, or we used to call it event and promo, right? It was all projects for the most part. Like you did a good job, you earned another job. So in a way, I feel that we used to stand at the window and say, oh, I wonder what it's like to be AOR. That must be really cool. And you're going to get a check every month, right? But I think the discipline that we were developing, project-based, is what clients require.
Right.
So I think the first thing is you got to know the kind of agency you want and how you're going to sell your business to clients. The other thing, so we made the concept, we only take 8 clients a year, right? So we're looking for clients that, if we want to be able to do strategy work and, content and creative work and experiential work, you need clients of a certain size with certain budgets, but you need to know how to service that work and have, industry expertise in the areas that you focus in. But at the same time, you need to know what you're not. And I find the more you're able to have the discipline to say no, the better your business will be. The more we say no, the more opportunities we get. It sounds so weird. And I have this conversation with young agency people all the time. Like, what do you mean you say no and you get more work? But I think we're in a business that you have to manage opportunity costs. So if you take the wrong client, then that's an opportunity with the right client that you can't have room for. And I joke with our teams that I'm not looking to date clients. We are looking to marry clients, because if you want to do really good strategy work and deep, meaningful work that's going to change the business growth, you require trust. So that's the second part. We're talking about empathy, and I think marketing is a trust exercise between client and partner. And ideas are scary, and clients need to know that you're aligned on the same side of not across the table, same side of the table with them. We're in it together. And so I believe this era of marketing is a great opportunity for the smaller boutique, private, in my music industry history, it's time for the indie bands to come back, right? No offense to multinationals, they do phenomenal work. Right. There's definitely needs for multinationals when you look at certain types of client setups and large multinational corporations. I've lived in those networks. I personally, for the kind of work I want to do and the people I want to do it with, private is better for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's that's a very attractive thing, knowing that you specialize, and of course, with specialization comes supreme confidence, and confidence translates into a lot of trust for a lot.
Well,
of
on a
clients.
good day, I mean, it's funny. I was talking to one of my kids, and and he asked me about this podcast today, actually, and he goes, "Are you nervous?" Right? Because I do a lot of speaking. I go, "I'm nervous every time I speak." He goes, "What are you nervous about?" Because I get nervous, and I said, "Well, is this the day that everyone figures out that maybe I don't know it, or maybe I'm not as smart as I think I am, or things like that?" But I think it goes down to humility, right? It's like, I think if you walk in the room thinking you're the smartest person in the room, how effective are you going to be?
Yeah.
Right? And that goes into lifelong learning and making sure you hear other people's points of view. But I don't think it's about being right. I think it's helping get to a destination of consensus. And I think we're small because, frankly, if you want senior level attention and you're my client, I need to be able to keep my promise to you. And if we disagree, I should be able to tell you openly. And worst case scenario, if we really disagree, then we shouldn't work together.
Yeah.
And we need to be at a size that we can do that, and we can walk away, and I don't have to lay it off a bunch of people. But you need to know how strongly we believe in an idea and our strategy, and we're prepared to back it up. And if we're not the right partners, then we should walk away. And I think a lot of people in our space want to work like that. There's just systemic challenges that if they can really do that.
Yeah.
Right. Where you get people, I'm working on stuff I don't believe in, or I don't know if the client's right for us. But, and I don't think every agency does this, but I think when you overlay the different business models that agencies can be involved in, sometimes, there's risk in having that level of honesty. So we've purposely built a construct that tries to hedge that risk.
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, hearing you say that, you get nervous every time you speak.
Absolutely.
It's funny. We had Scott Stratton in here. I'm sitting across
I'm a
from
giant fan. I love that.
No, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing guy.
He must never get nervous.
Well, that's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
He was sitting across from us here, and he said, "Listen, I could get a phone call right now, and if there was 5,000 people downstairs, I could walk down there and just do it, and I don't feel any fear."
Yeah.
And it makes me think of there's that great documentary about the free solo climber or whatever,
Right.
and they do a scan of his brain, and it's not that he's like insanely brave. He's actually missing a part of his brain that actually signals like fear.
Right.
And I don't know if that's Scott, this the case with Scott, but I think most people would agree. And I think as it relates to doing work for clients, I think that's kind of like, I don't know if that's a secret or not, but I think there's, when we present work with clients and we go down this road and we feel like we've done a great job and we feel like it's right, there's a confidence that comes with presenting it and convincing a client, and they see that and they respond to it and they go, well, then I'm in. But behind the scenes, there's still a part of you that's going, I really hope this works.
Of course.
And that's maybe the dirty little secret of that happens with creative endeavors, is that you don't really know.
Well, and I think that's part of the attraction. Right. I mean, I am terrified of heights. I will never skydive. I get all my excitement through work. Right. Like it's exciting when you come up with a creative idea and that, hopefully either hasn't been done before or the take on it, and you're going to put it out there and you're going to give birth to it and it's going to work. Man, that makes you come back. That makes you, that makes you work late. That makes you want to be better at craft. Right. But I also think it's being honest and human and admitting, when you make a mistake and learning from those mistakes. Or just, I was in a session a couple weeks ago, before the holiday, and somebody asked me a question I didn't know the answer, right? And I'm old enough now to not be afraid to tell the client, I don't know that answer, but will you give me a couple days and I will follow up with you on it. Right. When I was starting my career, I probably never would have said that. I was like, you know what? I would have, God forbid, probably made something up or waited for someone else. But the client didn't know the answer either. So they really respected the honesty. They go, I really appreciate you saying it. So I'm hoping that by just being that honest, that helps build more trust. So when we do know something, you're gonna trust us.
Right.
I don't think, just like no agency can do everything, we can't know everything. Things are just moving too fast. But we can find it out, and we can get smarter about it, and then we can get better about it, and or bring in the right people. Or there's a number of ways to tackle this fluidity of knowledge that is kind of a false positive, right?
Let's talk a little bit about the future of the business, because
Sure.
You mentioned that we see a lot of internal agencies that are popping back up, and that's not a new idea. We've seen that before.
Yep.
And I remember talking to more senior people years ago, and one of them said, oh, we see this all the time. You will see the popularity of in-house, and then as in-house sort of wanes a little bit, then you'll see clients then going outside. And there's different philosophies in how people feel about it. On one side, you have this idea that if you're an internal agency and you're working on a singular brand, that eventually burnout will happen, that eventually you're going to, you get into that danger of like being too inside an organization, really missing the boat in terms of, and then the other thing is the competitive nature of agencies, in that, they're always going to want to keep your business. So they're going to work a little bit harder. They're exposed to other clients. Maybe they have a better point of view. And so what do you make of this internal thing? Because a lot of people think that it's singularly driven by efficiencies.
Listen, I think efficiencies are important, right? I mean, and I think there's certain levels of expertise that if a company is of a certain scale and size, then I completely understand why they're looking at an in-house option for some hybrid of services. The fact is, and I think, frankly, as an industry, we've given reason for clients to look.
To build inside.
To not just look at us, but to build inside. So, we are working with a number of clients that have some type of in-house, whether it's in-house media or in-house agency or in-house creative services. And I find there's two types of external agencies that factor into that conversation. There's certain agencies who we have no interest in working with internal shops. Right? For whatever reason, they see them as a threat, or they've had bad experiences. I don't know. We've taken the other approach, right? Because we're very comfortable, and the majority of our work is in an interagency environment. That's how I was trained. So whether that interagency environment is 4 external shops that divvy up between PR, media, creative, and I don't know, shopper, or whatever, T-shaped disciplines you want, social, or one of those shops is inside the organization. They're all colleagues that we got to work with because we have a problem. We have a challenge that the client's looking for us to do. So I'm not seeing a lot of clients enamored with rigidity in their agency partner thinking. So I think having an open-minded approach to that has gotten us projects and clients and scopes that we maybe never would have gotten if we were more rigid. But I think these models are fluid. Like the way, we're talking about, we were talking about trust being fluid, and we're talking about, there's just different things clients are looking to achieve now. I kind of see it as a pendulum. I think right now they're going to try it. P&G is saying that they've solved it and that they're driving huge savings. Other organizations are reverting back and putting a CMO in place and looking for different agencies. I think I think the challenge for the clients now is finding models that are going to work within their DNA.
Yeah.
And so I applaud clients for looking for different models, and I really selfishly I applaud clients for considering boutique and domestic shops, because obviously I'm one of them, but there's a whole bunch of talent that doesn't want to work in a multinational anymore for whatever reason. And, either they're opening up their own shops, or they're finding new collaboration models, or they're working on their own, right? And just want to work with their expertise, because there has been a lot of undue stress and layoffs and mental illness and all kinds of systemic problems in the past with our industry, and every industry has their challenges, but I think there's so much exciting talent in new shops that are being formed and people we can look up to. And, some are big, some are small, some are doing really brave work, some are, just finding their footing. But there's a whole new ecosystem of idea leadership that's happening. And, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in US, whether it's in Europe, Middle East, but it's exciting. There's a new invigoration, I think, into these models. I think the challenge is often for clients to keep up with it because, often we still see, we're going to do an RFP and we're going to go through the scorecard ranking of the agencies of the year. And you get these clients that are complaining they're on a Ferris wheel of the same. Yeah. And so if you want different, you got to go out and look for different. And there's just some amazing talent that's going on, and it's exciting to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sure about this. I don't know if this is true, but it feels that way to me. Is that there's kind of a perfect storm happening in that these internal agencies, if I look at, say, even, big clients like bank clients,
yeah, sure,
creating their own internal agencies. Well, the authors of some of the best work in the country, they're the same authors. They've moved from, so the talent is coming from, places like GRIP and BBDO and all those places. You got senior kind of level people who are coming and building creative departments inside those big clients. And so I'm not sure if that is necessarily new or not, but it feels that way to me. It's sort of this disenchantment a little bit with the multinationals, and maybe it's driven by this enormous downward pressure on things, and salaries aren't there or whatever. And now I'm like, I know who that person is. I know who that creative director is, and look where he's going now, right? And I'm not sure if that was the case in the previous incarnations of internal agencies.
I agree. I think a good proxy of that is we saw when PR firms wanted to grow their seat at the table, if you will, right? And there are some very forward-thinking firms that either A, pivoted or grew their offerings. Like, obviously one of the poster kids there is Edelman, right. And I think they run a fabulous shop, and, Weber and some of those folks who are just, how can we offer more to our clients who are asking for it, right? I mean, there's obviously a dialogue there. I think in-house agencies could be started for a particular purpose. I think what I'm seeing is, and we do a lot of work with banks, so, banks are certainly doing this, but usually what my observation is these internal shops are being formed for a specific reason, right? Either they're not finding what they want externally, or they're looking for a different cost model. And so I think the balance is going to be the level of expertise and agility that an in-house team can bring you, they are always on the team. And then do you sprinkle that or balance that with external partners that can show you how the world can look outside, so you can avoid that myopathy or things like that. So I think it's going to be a balance based on clients, and there's going to be a whole bunch of different models. And I think you're seeing agencies that are collectives. You're seeing smaller shops that are teaming up on pitches and things like that. So I think there's, again, the lines are blurring, rules are off the table. Who can provide value and alignment? And those people are gonna win. The clients are gonna vote with their confidence in their budget and where they get work from. Also, you have different economic models now. So, you could get somebody who moved to a smaller shop. There's a different price model versus where they were working if they were at a big shop on Bloor or things like that. So, one of the brands that we work with that I love working with is RBC, and they're phenomenal. And I often joke, we're a small shop. Why should we exist at RBC? But, we're able to develop work on specific scopes of our expertise, and we're tracking that we're 30% faster in terms of brief to concept to idea and market, and we are definitely more efficient because of our lower overhead. Does that mean I'm prepared to put up my hand and say we should be AOR of the largest corporation in Canada? No, we are one function. There's more than enough work to go around for all kinds of different scopes and briefs, and there's different needs at different times that we certainly don't bring to the table. I think it's knowing what are you good at, and having the confidence to just do that, right? Rather than, in past agency careers, it's like, yeah, we do it all. Whatever you need, we can do it. And I think clients really now are taking a deep look at those types of statements. So, you know what? I need my team X to do this, team Y to do this. We can do this in-house. Like, who is best to lead it? And then how do we collaborate together so that we can build off each other? So I think it's a really exciting time. I think some people, are saying the sky is falling and it's the end of agencies and things like that. But that's very common in a number of industries, that disruption and change bring new energy and success models.
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask your opinion about this, and I'm kind of doubling back, but this always happens. I have this plan on where I'm going to start and where we're going to end up, but because we happen to have very interesting guests, it never goes that way. But as we talk about younger people getting into the business, I think every generation comes into the business with unique challenges. Yep. and people telling them, for me, it was like, the early 90s and it was a recession and it was all going to be really difficult.
That's when I came out. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And, it's like, well, you're never going to get a job and, whatever. And yet, but I ask all guests who come on because, part of the reason why we do this podcast is to show people that if you're interested in getting in this business, that your path might be unique, but in many ways it's very similar to all of ours. And there's some truth about the advice that comes with getting in the business. And I'll ask you what your advice would be to somebody younger who's getting into business, despite the challenges or what you're hearing about it currently.
Well, I think some of my advice might be a little generic, right? So whether you're going to go into advertising, marketing, finance, accounting, whatever you want to do, make a commitment to be great. Because I think the challenge now is, regardless of any business, none of us have time for good. We have time for great. And I think that comes down to just finding what you're going to love to do. Because I think if you love doing it, you do it for free, right? Or you don't think about the money, you think about, to our comments earlier, you think about the craft, or how do you consistently get better and have that intellectual curiosity to always want to be at the top of your game, right? So the good news is, in our business, if we just focus on that, I mean, if you're surrounded by people who want to be great and want to really contribute, what an awesome way to spend a day, a week, a career, being around people who want to make each other better. I think sometimes, especially in our industry, we're really good at putting wrapping paper on stuff and making things look awesome, right? So I think you have to have an honest look at, and I think we as educators and mentors need to have honest conversations with people coming in to the business, young people who our business is built on the energy of young people, right? So as an industry, if you asked me if I could go work in an industry that allows me to be creative and use creative ideas to help businesses and brands grow and create margin and difference in people's minds, how exciting is that?
Right.
For me, that's why I do it. But in month 7 of my career, am I going to be leading strategy sessions and reviewing creative? No, you're not. Right? And it's not that you're not awesome, but we all have rules here, and you got to learn, and we all have to learn the basics before we can, go play rep hockey. You got to learn how to skate, and you got to learn how to turn, and you got to learn how to stop. And I joke with a lot of my young colleagues, it's the work back schedule, right? Which a lot of people don't come out of school and say, I really want to do work back schedules every day, right? Or status reports. But if marketing is a trust endeavor, then the status report's really important. Here's what we did this week. Here's what we're going to do next week. And we keep our promises. Or the work back schedule shows you exactly that we're professionals and we know what we're doing, and we update it. Now you're in a safe space that we can enable creation, and we can enable trust and take risks. So there's, and that's just obviously on the account side. But I think sometimes, we think it's all going to be Mad Men, and it hasn't been Mad Men for a while. But what an amazing opportunity to use creativity for business, right? And that's fascinating. I mean, are you going to change careers? Are things going to be different? Yeah, absolutely. Social media influencer didn't exist as a title of job function
Right.
10, 12, 15 years ago, right? Interaction designer, user experience.
Right.
So as we shift, there's new opportunities for people and young people to come in and still do really well and grow their careers. It's just, I think, how do you come in and commit to working really hard? Because whatever industry you're going to go into, you're going to have to work hard, but have enough of an open mind to be able to learn and be open to change, right? So when I started, I came out in the recession, and as a Gen Xer, we were told that we were lazy, and we weren't really lazy. There was just no work, right? So you had to really find a gig or start a gig, and I think that's why so many of us have an entrepreneurial kind of bent on things. So like, no one's going to help us, so how are you going to eat?
Right.
What are you going to do? And it's all up to you. So I think the idea now is this is still an amazing business where a young person can come in who's talented and is prepared to really work hard and earn their credibility. You can go real fast and you can have a fantastic, exciting career. And I still think that there's a huge need for these types of lateral idea creation thinkers that can actually execute and turn things into stories, outputs, whatever we want to call them. I just think they're coming from different backgrounds now. So not everybody's going to just be carrying a portfolio around. It could be tech. It could be strategy. You could get it in house now, right? So there's just I often get asked, what's a great place for young people to start their careers now? I love banks and insurance companies, right? And I usually get a face, well, that's kind of boring. I'm like, these are organizations that can actually hire young people and train them. They're not going to run out of their burn rate of cash like a startup, even though startups are super sexy. But where can you go and spend 2 to 3 years and learn a lot and figure out what you like, what do you not like, and where do you want to focus? And the startups are sexy, but there's a lot of great businesses that need the energy and talents of young people and are looking for them.
Yeah, I think that I think there's, when I think about myself coming out of college, and I think there's this idea that you're at a learning institution for a while, and then you get your job, and all of a sudden you've started your job, when really the thinking should be that you're at a learning institution clearly to learn,
right,
and then you get a job, and you should really still be in learning mode because you're still at the point where you still need an education. One thing that if I could go back, and there was one thing that I would try to, tell my younger self what to do when I got my first job in advertising, it would be to talk to the creative director more often about what that person needed.
Right.
Because then all of a sudden you become a person of, Einstein's comment about being, a person of value. It's kind of understanding that you're going to learn something. It's an amazing opportunity, but also be in tune with you're still solving problems. You're solving clients' problems. You're solving creative directors' problems. You're solving account directors' problems, and so on. So be a person who's willing to go forward and kind of go, can I help you solve this problem? What's the best way for me to do it?
I think that's a great point. I think a lot what we try and do at Per Se is try and figure out what's keeping our clients up at night. And if we can take that worry away, they can replace that mental energy so we can have different conversations. So it's, hey, is the creative going to get out on time? Well, hey, okay, these are systemic things that we can make, administrative functions to show you that everything is tracking well. So we can create more airtime for bigger conversations around needs and thinking, and how do we enable higher conversations? Because often you get into a client meeting and it becomes a status meeting. And if you can take the confidence that that's being done, we can get to higher order thinking. That's one. I think compensation is an important part of this conversation too, right? Because I think young people come out with a tremendous amount of pressure on compensation and thinking, okay, what's my title? What am I going to make? And again, when people are starting out in their careers, forget about our industry. Usually you don't make that much, or you have a title you maybe don't want forever, which is fine, coordinator, intern, whatever. But there's a fluidity there that you're going to develop based on merit or based on opportunity, right? So the best advice I got was don't worry about the title, worry about the work, and wherever you sit at the table is the head of the table, even if it's a circular table. So, and basically that was just take responsibility as being your own leader, and what is your brand, and be that brand you want to be, right? Regardless if you're the junior on the team, mid-layer, specialist, whatever. And I find the people who bring that approach, which has a lot of humility, you got to be humble. And our industry's had challenges with humility over the years, right? But humility is saying you don't know the answer. Humility is saying that you need to learn and continue to learn. Humility is saying that my colleagues probably know more than me, so I should talk half as much as I listen. Like all those things we learned in kindergarten, really. And I think those are the best creative people, are the best creative thinkers, regardless of if your title is creative director or strategy lead or interaction designer or account manager, right? I think it's a nucleus of talent that brings work together. And I think account management is incredibly creative. I think strategy is incredibly creative. I think creative is incredibly hard. And requires admin functions. I don't see these, the old stereotype of account people are only allowed up to a certain part of the studio, and then you can't come in and talk to creative people. It's different. It's a different world now where a number of business professionals need to come together to solve issues, and it is collaboration. So I mentioned that I started my career in the music business, which I probably would still be in today if it wasn't for Napster. Right, because I was working in a record company. Life was good, going to all kinds of concerts. I already worked in concert production, and then Napster happened, and our industry was disrupted. And it was funny. I still remember the film folks saying, "Oh, that's too bad. Never going to happen to us." I'm like, really? Not going to happen to you? Okay. And then nobody was looking at the video game industry, which, by the way, is now bigger than everything, right? Huge. So, if you don't have that humility to learn, you wouldn't see it. Right. So, I was able to go from music to, I joined a company called Future Shop and learned retail and we had an in-house agency that, they let me kind of run amok in and do all kinds of stuff when I was really not qualified, but I was optimistic that I could do it. And it was a great education. And I learned that I got disappointed by a lot of agencies when I was a client. And I remember what that felt like. I still remember when an agency said they were going to call me on Friday and didn't, right? And I was like, oh my God, and the whole weekend. So managing expectations and building trust. And I think a lot of those experiences, when I moved back to Toronto and opened up my first shop, I was like, I don't want to replicate those things. How do we build a better mousetrap? And have we done it? I think we're on a journey and we're trying to do it. Is everything perfect? Nope. But it's a fun week, and we love our clients, and God bless our clients for trusting a small boutique when there's lots of choices out there, and we take that trust really seriously.
Look, we're kind of coming to the close of our time here together, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that your good friend Adam Drutz, who we work with over here, has brought up your love of sneakers and shoes. Yeah. And so, I'll throw it over to you about, because I feel like this is something that's new. It's new to me, but maybe it's not new to you.
It's funny. It's not new to me, but it's interesting. It's really I think we're in a moment right now where sneaker culture and streetwear culture is obviously in the zeitgeist, right? So now all these, you run into all these, they can know the sneakers and the names and things like that. I got really lucky in my career that I moved and joined an agency called Siegel back in the early 2000s. And we were, at the time, referred to as an event and promo agency. Great clients. Rob Siegel was the founder and one of the best bosses I ever worked for. But the rule at Siegel was we were kind of outsiders and we were rebels, and our goal was to bring really scary, crazy ideas. We did a lot of youth marketing. So there wasn't a lot of reason to wear suits, right, in where we were hanging out. And it just kind of developed when I joined the office, everyone had really good taste in sneakers. For some reason, it was just where, maybe it's because of the age we were all at, or, that if you wanted to spruce up your wardrobe, picking up a pair of sneakers was great, right? So we kind of all got into that, and it just stuck with me. I was a competitive tennis player as a kid and through university, and the best part of tennis were the sneakers for me, so I just got hooked on it. And I don't love wearing suits, but I do love wearing sneakers. So I just kind of kept it, and I've met Adam Drutz over the years, and he's a fan of sneakers and things like that. So still to this day, I'm not really worried about a lot of my clothing, but I spend a little bit more time than I probably should thinking about, my sneakers and what I should get next. And now I have 2 boys, and we all share our love of sneakers. They're really into it because of their age, but it's fun. And now, luckily for me, as my kids say, there's a whole sub-genre of dad sneakers. So now I can still play in dad sneakers, and my kids get to take bigger risks in their sneaker game and things like that. But
well, I mean, on our staff here, I'm looking over at Josh because it's as our video editor over here who makes all this stuff happen and does such an amazing job. The guys, he walks in with a different pair of sneakers every day. Aren't you at the level where you actually buy them and wait for them to increase in value and then sell them? Are you that guy?
Are you boxing? You're keeping them in the boxes? No, I'm not. And I'm not at that level anyway. But you know what? There's a great colleague I used to work with, a great artist named Brian Espiritu, who I'm a big fan of Brian's work, both his art, but also he runs a great streetwear clothing shop called the Legends League. And I just love what Brian does. I love how he thinks. And he's considered an influencer in this streetwear sneaker culture. And he's actually trying to start a movement that I really believe in, where all these influencers are getting too many sneakers, and he's trying to get people to donate them back so that he can share these great sneakers with people who normally wouldn't get access to them. Yeah, so it's interesting how a sneaker trend or movement is now allowing really accomplished creators like Brian to bring a discussion around people in need and people who don't get access to this and shining a light on it. So I think there's a lot of creativity coming out of that sneaker culture that brands want to be a part of. Some brands are going to be able to pull it off legitimately, and a lot are posers. Right. But I do see your producer wearing some fresh white Cons in the middle of January. So you must know some. I don't know how to keep them clean, so that's where I don't have those whites right now. And for probably all these people are sick of hearing about sneaker talk, right? So I'm wearing New Balance today because I am a father of 3. So, but they are the New Balance Toronto Raptor edition. So, I'm a proud 416er. So, it was an easy choice when I saw them on the wall. Right. So, but that's the most I've talked live about my sneaker habit. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're totally welcome. Look, I want to thank you for coming on. You've shared some amazing insights today. I'm just so glad, and I was so looking forward to it. And it's a great way to kick off 2020. And I know that we're at the end of a Happy New Year. So
that's our last day.
Happy New Year, and thanks.
Hey, listen,
so much.
Thank you. On behalf of our team at Per Se, we appreciate the profile, and for those listening, come out to our Ensemble series. But we love what you're doing. I think more people need to hear how people enter and evolve in this business, because it's super exciting, and there's never been more opportunity for the right mindset and approach. So it's an exciting time to help brands communicate today and tomorrow. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for that.
This episode has been brought to you by the National Advertising Challenge, North America's only brief-based challenge that sends winners to Cannes, France.